What's up, guys? Welcome to another 5-Minute Friday. Today's episode is going to be super hot. Well, hot for me. Hopefully not for you. So right now it's about 100 degrees here in New Mexico. But the reason why we're out here in this heat is my dedication to you guys. And I've been getting people asking me about how to take pictures in harsh conditions. And this is pretty much what we deal with in New Mexico all the time. It's 320 days of sunshine a year. So I figured I'd give you guys some tips on how to shoot in bright daylight conditions like this. A lot of times when you go on vacation, or even if you just have some free time and you're out for a hike or whatever, a lot of people are out during these daylight hours. And it's usually not that great for photography unless you got some epic clouds or whatever, but I can tell you right now, we don't have any. I'm gonna use the drift method. Freaking incredible. Round F16 for that to get that sunburst. So I'm going to show you some of my methods for getting better pictures with either this or this. It doesn't matter what you have, the principles of photography for this are going to be the same. However, I am going to show you some settings and stuff that you're going to be able to do if you have a DSLR or mirrorless, but the phones have a lot of control these days too, so it doesn't matter what you're shooting with. Let's go find some harsh light and start shooting in it. Okay, so first tip before we go anywhere, before I step out and scorch myself, is probably the most commonsensical one, and that's find some shade. So if you're in a place where you have either tree shade or wall shade, I'm down here in a park in my local town, and I found some shade. So this is a perfect spot, and we got a nice mural back here with lots of cool colors. So it's a perfect spot for a portrait. So again, this also depends on what type of image you want to take, but let's just assume for now we're talking about portraits. So if you can't find any shade, the next best thing you can do is make your own shade. So luckily, Brittany likes to carry around this umbrella. She also has a parasol. This stuff really helps. So if you have somebody that has an umbrella and you're just holding it over like this, then you're gonna have nice even lighting on their faces. And right now, my face probably looks a little too dark because the camera is metering for everything. But that comes to the next thing, which is overexposing. So before we get to that real quick though, it doesn't have to be an umbrella. It could be a parasol, it could be, I carry around a little diffuser with me, usually wherever I go. And it could be a little diffuser, anything that can make some shade. I mean, you could have somebody hold up a backpack, as long as it's enough to cover the person's face enough. You know, to if you wanted to get a close-up portrait or something. So if you can't find any shade, try to make your own shade. So shade, no shade. Shade, no shade. Okay. All right, so that was cropped all the way in. F4, 320th of a second. Get that nice blurry background, and the umbrella helps as a prop in this case, which is nice for just an outdoor environmental portrait. So let's do one without the umbrella now. So what are you going to do? The first thing you want to do is you want the sun behind your subject, so you want that backlit. The benefit that that's going to create is that that's going to make them not squint. See, I'm squinting right now because the sun's in my face. So if you don't want them to wear sunglasses or whatever, you want a nice natural looking portrait. You want the sun behind your subject so that their face is A, shadowed all the way, and 2, so that they're not squinting. Now the problem that's going to create is your camera's going to want to meter for the entire scene, and it's going to be brighter than your subject. So your subject's going to end up looking dark. So in order to deal with that, you're going to want to overexpose. If you don't have anything, fill flash or bounce light or anything like that, you don't need it. Just overexpose a little bit, and it'll be okay if you blow those highlights out. It'll make a nice environmental portrait. So like on that one, F4, 1/25th of a second, zoomed in, ISO 100. That's a stop and a third overexposed. So you see her shoulders and the light on her hair is a little blown out. That's okay, that's stylistic, but more importantly, the story and the subject is proper. So the subject is proper exposed, and you have to overexpose what your camera would think is overexposed to get that shot. You can do that on your phones too. A lot of the phones will have, even if they don't have a manual mode, they'll have an automatic adjustment where like you can tap on the screen and wherever you tap it'll meter for. So if you tap on the subject's face, it should brighten it up a little bit. If not, they have exposure compensation, which you can slide up, usually on most phones, especially ones that come out in the last year or so. If you guys have like clouds or rain, can you like mail those to New Mexico for us? Because I'm really hot and it hasn't rained. It's like the end of June. It hasn't rained since like October. Anyway, so let's talk about landscapes real quick. What if you don't want to take pictures of people? What if you're out and about in harsh daylight and you want to take landscapes? A couple things you can do. So first thing is black and white. Black and whites are fantastic for harsh light. They create lots of contrast. Another thing you can do is still overexpose. If you're going to want to boost those shadows, you definitely want to shoot for the highlights. So shooting for the highlights, what do I mean by that? I mean by expose for your highlights. You cannot recover blown out highlights, but you can recover what you might think is dark shadows. So you can boost those shadows. So you can boost those shadows in post by sliding up on your slider in Lightroom or whatever you use. Just you can boost your shadows. And there's often details in there in the shadows, but not in the highlights. If they're blown out, they're blown out. There's no details. And there is a point in the shadows where there's no detail as well. But generally speaking, you can fix your shadows a lot better and easier than you can fix your highlights. So if you're gonna wanna increase the dynamic range of your camera, whether it's a phone or a DSLR or mirrorless or whatever, then expose for your highlights, boost your shadows, and then still you'll be able to drop your highlights in post if they're still over just a little bit. And that overall will help get you a more properly exposed image in harsh light. Okay, so that's it. That's 4 tips. So we've got find shade, make shade, put your subjects back to the sun, and overexpose. Those are the 4 things that I do when I'm out shooting in harsh light, no matter what I'm doing it for. If I'm doing it professionally or personally, whether I'm doing it on my DSLR or on my cell phone. And if you want to know more about the cell phone stuff and shooting in pro modes and all that, make sure you go check out my cell phone tutorials. I got a bunch of them on there. I got a bunch of editing tutorials on there about that stuff, about getting the most out of your images. So hopefully that'll help keep your creativity fresh, even if the lighting is crappy and you're out in the middle of the day roasting in the sun like I am. If you like this stuff and you want to see more, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got new videos every Tuesday and Friday. If you have any questions about any of the stuff I went over or any tips or tricks that you have or that you want to know about, make sure you leave those in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Real quick, I forgot one more thing. For landscape type stuff during the daylight, one of the things that I do is I use a polarizer. So a circular polarizer will help on those bright days to give you a little more saturation, especially if you've got greens and blues. If you're somewhere real pretty with a lot of colors, use a polarizer in harsh light and that's gonna help. Try to stay away from the polarizers in the wide angles because they only work kind of perpendicular to light and they can give you some wonky stuff. If you want to know, if you don't know about polarizers and you want to know more, I did this video right up here you can go check out and that'll help you figure out what ND and polarizer filters are for and how they're used. But harsh light, landscapes, polarizers, really good stuff.